This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody. Billy Embody. 1, 2, 3, let me go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for listening. Coming to you from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, or Durham, where my hotel is actually, but was here Tuesday night to watch SMU North Carolina. And what a day it was for SMU, though. Even before and after that loss to the Tar Heels, SMU did come away with the 11th president of SMU nabbing Jay Hartzell from University of Texas in Austin. Wow, what a moment for SMU to do that. And we'll break all that down on the podcast. But first, want to remind you guys to subscribe to ontheponyexpress.com for just $1 for your first week. We've got coverage of Jay Hartzell, we've got transfer portal intel, basketball coverage, and more, all rolling as Rhett Lashley and his staff also hit the recruiting trail, getting a head start on that next recruiting cycle. And want to remind you guys that we are presented by our friends Mark Villasana and company at Northwest Insurance Agency. They are taking care of SMU alums because he is one, and he can go over your current insurance policy, your coverage, all of those things to make sure that you have the coverage that you need from him. You can give him a call, 214-352-5656, or email him, markv@nwagencies.com, and he'll discuss your current rates, coverage, and where you may lack protection. And one group that maybe wanted some protection was Texas, from SMU taking its president, and SMU did just that with the news breaking Tuesday morning, just as I was getting on my flight to Raleigh-Durham. And I can tell you, this was a massive moment in what has been a couple of years of massive moments for SMU. And so they get Jay Hartzell to come to SMU, leaving a place where he graduated from, had his got his graduate degree from UT, and took over as president of UT back in 2020 after serving as the dean of the Macomb School of Business. And I think you could not have drawn up a better candidate, much less your next president of SMU, than Jay Hartzell. And there's numerous reasons for that. One, I think despite this being a university president, the commitment to doing athletics at a really high level stands out to me in a big way. I think that's something that you can't deny, that he has helped Texas move to the SEC. He's helped them revamp, alongside, of course, Chris Del Conte, one of the best athletic directors in the country. He's helped revamp the game day atmosphere in DKR. They've been a part of numerous facilities projects there in Austin as well. New basketball arena there, getting that done. And then you get to the academic side. And I think for SMU, getting somebody with that business school experience after SMU just obviously renovated the Cox School of Business. And it's beautiful. If you haven't been over there, you've got to go and just see it. I've walked some people through there recently, and it blows you away what they did. And now it is a facility that matches the goals of SMU when it comes to its business school. And so having Jay Hartzell has got that experience, I think, was really important. He comes from a university that is one of the top brands in college athletics, and he embraced that in a big way. I think he's somebody that, on game day is obviously going to be active, like Gerald Turner was, walking the boulevard and things like that, but he's going to be a fan of SMU, and he's going to be in the stands. He's known for sitting in the Cotton Bowl and having a beer and a corny dog watching UT-OU or OU Texas, whichever side you're on. But he's, I think, somebody that's just going to fit in really well, still relatively young as well. So I think he's somebody that could very well hold this position for, over a decade. And that wouldn't be a bad thing based on his track record of what he's done at Texas, managing applications that have been at all-time highs, which is now what SMU is kind of moving towards when it comes to all the buzz around the university with the move to the ACC with the move, making the college football playoff, and all of the success that SMU's had over the last couple of years in athletics, and also trying to continue to be one of the best universities in the country. And now he'll head over to SMU and start later this year. And I think he's somebody that I don't claim to be, really on the cutting edge of knowing where exactly he's going to leave his mark in the biggest areas. But when you draw up a candidate, I really think SMU couldn't have, gotten into discussions with a better one. And there's a handful of presidents out there that, manage universities of this level and do it well and do it at a standard that can make alumni, or most every alumni, proud. I'm sure there's always people that are unhappy with this or that, but you talk to any Texas alum, or you talk to any Texas fan, and Jay Hartzell is credited with, in large part getting them to the SEC, in large part with revamping how athletics is done. Chris Del Conte was the athletic director before he was named the president of the school, but it takes two to tango, and it takes that commitment from the top, and managing all of the political atmosphere around UT Austin, not only just, all the boosters and the donors, but also, that government aspect. I think that really was a big selling point for him when looking at SMU. Of course, SMU is going to pay him very, very well to do this job. David Miller and the search committee deserve a ton of credit for this, because they didn't give up. And if there's one thing we've now seen confirmed multiple times when it comes to David Miller and the people he surrounds himself with in these pockets of moments for SMU, is they go big game hunting, and they will not necessarily be denied by any means. And I think that's part of the reason why he's here. He's somebody that didn't necessarily say yes right away. Wasn't being pushed out by UT. Wasn't unhappy there. But you look at what SMU has put together for him, and also now just in terms of his overall work-life balance, I guess. You don't have to answer to the governor. You're in a private school now. You don't have a board of regents and a board of this and a board of that. You have a handful, legitimately a handful of people at SMU that you've really got to make sure are taken care of. You've got to make sure that they're happy with the direction, of course. And, David Miller, as the chairman of the board, is one of those people. I can tell you, he made his way over to Chapel Hill and caught SMU-UNC. And I got a couple brief moments with him after the game, and talk about a guy that was just pretty much grinning from ear to ear. And for those of you that have been around him, he's very, very competitive. I'm sure he did not necessarily like the outcome of SMU-UNC, but to cap a day where he helps put together a transformative move for SMU and bringing Jay Hartzell to SMU, he got to watch SMU play in the Dean Dome and play a blue blood ACC program as an ACC member, not a one-off home and home or a neutral site. This is another one of those moments where SMU has arrived in the ACC as a full member. Being there, it was pretty surreal. All the pomp and circumstance around the game that the pregame of a UNC basketball game was really cool to see. And that atmosphere delivered. I know it wasn't packed house by any means, but that is why SMU made this move. Those types of moments and being on that stage. And look, SMU will get there at some point when it comes to the on-court performance. This is year one of a total rebuild and a total culture change and all of those things with the SMU basketball program. And they have a top recruiting class coming in next year, but they certainly have taken their lumps the last two games playing two blue blood ACC programs. But all that to say, you could almost sense that. I mean, it was not relief. It was just pure joy. Just kind of when I spoke with him for just a couple of brief moments, you could tell he almost just wanted to jump for joy. Talking about it and just being able to have that new leadership coming in for SMU. So, but back to Jay Hartzell, just coming in overall, I dropped a kind of early general to-do list for him at ontheponyexpress.com and what my uh, lowly alum / reporter expectations would be for the new leader of the university. But, when it comes to what else is next for him, SMU is approaching that Research One status. They're very, very close. They're about to pass into that elite group, which I think is something that, talking not only with, um, select people around the university, but as a whole, it's something that SMU wants to drive more of. And they just appointed a new or hired a new dean of Deadman as well. Comes highly, highly respected. Unfortunately, I'm going to work on his name and say it later, but at some point down the line. But there's a lot of excitement around some of the new people that are coming into this university to take it to the next level academically, to match what SMU is doing buzzwise with athletics, and not do it for rankings that are pay to play or this or that, certain marks that quite frankly don't really matter when it comes to educating future leaders, which is something that SMU really highlighted when it comes to why Jay Hartzell fits so well. They want to have programs across the university that deliver leaders for this world, this country that we live in. And when you look at what Jay Hartzell managed at Austin, in Austin, it's a behemoth. It's a massive undertaking to do that. And I think now you get him in a school where, there again, you go back to, there's only so many people that in the grand scheme of things, you have to make sure that all the waters are always calm and everybody's happy. But you can genuinely see with his connections around the country and just his background, doctorate, was an economist. He's a big lover of athletics. He threw a huge party in his office when Texas went into the SEC. So he understands all these different levers that can help elevate a university. And I think that's really, really important. And I really don't have too much else to say because haven't been able to talk to him just yet. I'm sure that'll come at some point down the line. But when you look at this hire, I mean, nationally, this was a major oh wow moment across the country because look, he leaves Texas just a couple days before, or I think he's finishing things out there. He arrives this summer for SMU for sure, June 1, I think. But he leaves the week of Texas playing in the Cotton Bowl against Ohio State in the college football playoff. And yeah, he's the university president, not the athletic director. But what a timing of this too. So what a tremendous move for SMU. It is just the latest of one of those moments where people can get excited and feel galvanized again. I think he's going to have a ton of work to do when it comes to navigating NIL, rev share, all of those things that are going to put major strains. And he's actually been one of the most not outspoken, I don't think that's the right word, but he's been quoted numerous times talking about it, the haves, the have-nots, and he wants SMU now to get into that have situation. And the leadership of SMU wants that as well, because look at all the moves they've made, from the ACC to nabbing Andy Enfield to extending Rhett Lashley, paying up to keep guys like Scott Simons, Kevin Jennings, and pretty much this whole roster that is still intact for next season. And there's a lot of commitment to athletics. And Jay Hartzell has, I think, a mindset where he knows what SMU can be. He's spent time, obviously, in the state for about the last, I think it's 24 years. I think it was 01 that he moved down to Texas. And I think when you look at the challenge of SMU is finding some of the lost generation of football fans, of SMU people that maybe weren't as proud of the university, but they're now doing well. They deserve to feel welcomed on campus. And I know as a general alum, the university president, they should always feel welcome, but there's just people that don't have that same connection to SMU that they did when they were here in the 80s, or they were here when football really got rolling again, or Larry Brown got things back on track and in basketball and things like that. And these athletic moments are what connects a university. And to get somebody like Jay Hartzell who understands that in such a big way is so important for this university. So a really unbelievable moment when I found out about 20 minutes before it went public. I was in shock, and texted a couple of UT people and said, "Hey, this guy isn't getting forced out, right? Everything's okay." And they were pretty shocked by the move. And so, what a moment again for SMU. I know I've said that a million times now, so I'm just going to kind of move on to basketball here and kind of a quick recruiting recap of things because I've got a flight to catch. But when you see this moment for SMU, you're going to look back on it in 5 to 10 years, maybe sooner, and say this is the moment that SMU went from, all right, power conference program, power conference university, clicking the right buttons, but just clicking them with maybe a small control room and putting things in place where you could be successful. Jay Hartzell, I do believe, is going to take this university and take it to the moon, as the kids would say. And I just, as an alum, I mean, you can't help but be beyond excited for what SMU is now and where it's going under Jay Hartzell. So we'll have a lot more coverage as Jay Hartzell will, I don't know how much he'll do over the next few months with regards to SMU, but I'll reach out and try to get an interview or get him on a pod and things like that. Or heck, maybe we'll take a little family vacation down to Austin and see if we can't chat with him for a few moments. So it is going to be a blast to get to see this unfold. So with that, guys, before we get into the rest of the podcast, talk a little bit about SMU-UNC, kind of what's next after 2 tough losses, especially offensively, not shooting the ball well again. We'll also talk a little portal news. But first, I got to remind you guys that we are presented by our friends at the Thomas Auto Group. I was just texting with Brandon Thomas, and he is an SMU alum, and he said, sure, absolutely, you can bring your car over and get it looked at. Let me put you in touch with one of my service guys. We'll get this taken care of right away. And that is the type of attention that he'll bring to you and his staff and help you guys out when it comes to whatever you need with your car, with your buying process. And that's why I also encourage you guys to take the drive up 75 to McKinney or go online, thomasautogroup.com, and look at their new and pre-owned cars and make sure you get that employee pricing discount that he is offering to on the ponyexpress.com subscribers. Huge opportunity for you guys to take advantage of that. So appreciate the Thomas Auto Group for their support of the On the Pony Express podcast. All right, SMU did fall 82-67 to North Carolina Tuesday night in the Smith Center. And this is one that, if you followed it on the ponyexpress.com, it started off about as bad as it could get. 5-0. I think the Tar Heels jumped out to that lead right off the bat, and it just wasn't 6-0 actually lead right off the bat. But it just did not look good in that first minute for SMU. And boy, was that a sign of things to come. The Tar Heels raced out to a 17-point or 15-point, I think 15-point halftime lead. They were able to basically get, for the most part, some really good looks. I felt like SMU, they started things off in a zone, and North Carolina is a really good offensive team, but not necessarily the best 3-point shooting team. Well, they went 50% from 3-point range, and they kind of reverted a little bit more to their mean in the second half, going 4 of 10 from 3-point range. But that really just sparked things, and it sparked RJ Davis. It sparked Elliot Cadeau. It got Drake Powell going, who had 17. And that was really kind of what got the Tar Heels going offensively. And at the same time, it quite frankly, I think it shocked SMU in a way, not from the standpoint of, UNC is scoring, but when they raced out to a big lead, SMU is not able to recover in that atmosphere. And quite honestly, talking with Andy Enfield after the game, just one-on-one, which is always interesting, especially after a loss for any media person and coach. But just kind of being able to go back and forth with him in a conversation, and you look at what SMU had in terms of layups. I thought they had good looks. I mean, the balls went through SMU's hands when they got offensive rebounds. They got under the rim and just couldn't get it to go. They were not in position to maybe grab as many offensive rebounds as I felt like they could have, and they still offensively out rebounded UNC 15-7. Bounces just did not go SMU's way. The ball went right through hands at certain opportunities, and then you tack on SMU shooting 33% overall from the field and 4 of 18 from three-point range. The only two players to hit three-point shots, Matt Cross 1 of 3 and Chuck Harris 3 of 8. And I mean, Chuck had a fairly good night offensively, led SMU with 18 points, but they were a lot of garbage time points, in my opinion, that as UNC was kind of, as the game was in hand late, Chuck was able to get a good number in my opinion of those. And I think the issue I see with this team right now is that when they can't get out in transition and they get into the half court, they're taking threes and they're taking layups, which is, if you haven't followed and you haven't paid too much attention to how Andy Enfield wants his guys to take care of the ball and shoot the ball and do all these things, then you might not know that basically he wants you to get underneath the rim, layups, dunks, or shoot threes. He doesn't want elbow shots. He doesn't want pull-up jumpers. Doesn't want those things. And SMU got good looks from three. I mean, gosh, 18 three-point attempts and only 4 of them fall. I mean, they had some good looks, and they played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 players looking for a spark from beyond the arc. 8 of those, or 7 of those 10 took three-point shots, and only 2 players were able to make one, and only one made multiple. So just a really, really unfortunate shooting night, back-to-back nights. And I don't know, if you're SMU, where you go, because I'm of the opinion that they are taking decent shots for the most part. But then when the wheels fell off, I felt like, especially in terms of maybe when SMU would threaten and get it back down to 10, then they would miss a shot and it'd be a poor possession, and then UNC would get a fast break layup, maybe an and one at times, maybe hit a 3, and then it's just they're keeping you at arms, far enough at arm's length where you never threaten and you never get to build confidence. And that's been the biggest thing. I think even against Duke, we saw a couple moments where SMU would threaten and Moody would get loud, and you're kind of thinking, okay, all right, maybe they've got a little bit of spark in them. But I think this is right now a pretty inconsistent basketball team. Just and obviously, right, like the last 2 games, shooting and all of those things, just not going well. So I mean, it's easy to sit here and say they're inconsistent, but I'm not sure why they're inconsistent. And I don't know if just coming back from the break, they don't have their shooting touch right now. Maybe both games. I do think hustle wise, I felt like, and Andy Enfield said he was very much fine with the effort. And I think in the second half, in the first 10 minutes, they really had a good effort. Don't get me wrong. And they split the second half 43-43. So they got back a little bit more to their offensive ways, but I still think some of that was a little bit of garbage time. But when you look at what SMU put out there against UNC, I think they felt overwhelmed. I mean, they were like playing pickup basketball on defense where UNC had them in the rotation, and it was brutal. And I compare this SMU team a lot to what Will Wade did at LSU his first season when I was covering them, and they made the NIT and really improved. And I think they were an SEC team the year before that set the record for losses under Johnny Jones. And they basically brought in a bunch of offense players and said, you know what, we're going to try to outscore everybody, and at least we'll be exciting and we'll be fun. And the last 2 games, SMU has not been able to do that well offensively. And this is kind of the new age of basketball in a way. There are very few teams anymore that really want to play that Virginia, that AAC days of Cincinnati and SMU and Cincinnati, geez, battling it out in the rock fights and things like that. There are very few teams that kind of want to do that. Now you're talking about getting up and down. They want to play an NBA style. They want to get shots up. They want to get possessions. And the reason why you see that is because kids can build their confidence. Most kids can build their confidence easier when they get off to a good start shooting the basketball. I mean, look at RJ Davis last night for UNC in the first half. He was able to hit both of his 3-point shots and really was feeling it. Drake Powell was 3 of 4 from beyond the arc. And that kind of just set the tone for the entire team for UNC, and they fed off of that. And for SMU, they didn't get anyone that really turned into a nightmare for UNC to try and defend. And no one gave their teammates opportunities to build confidence. I think BJ Edwards played a really solid game overall. That was probably the highlight, but it was just kind of split between both halves, just 2 solid halves of basketball in a sense from him. Still didn't shoot the ball particularly well, 5 of 13 from the field, didn't hit a 3, but I mean, that's how few of the right spots were. Matt Cross finished with a double-double. Hubert Davis called him a matchup nightmare, which is all great, but SMU has to find a way to build confidence within the team quickly coming out of the beginning of a game. And I think that's where SMU is going to have to find a little bit more of itself as they go through this, because again, when you have a group like they have, and in terms of the talent offensively, if it doesn't come, the defensive effort just doesn't get they don't play the complementary side of college basketball when they're not scoring, when they're not shooting the ball well. And so that's where SMU has to find it. They play Georgia Tech in Moody Coliseum, 3 p.m. Central on ESPN2 on Saturday. We'll have your coverage, of course, at ontheponyexpress.com. But yeah, a second straight game where you don't even have to hammer it that hard, other than what is going on offensively. SMU had 11 turnovers against UNC. It wasn't that bad. It started off kind of poorly. I think they had 4 at one point, and UNC had 0. I could be wrong on that, but not turning the ball over an insane amount. They did out-rebound UNC 41-39. They were able to get good contributions off the bench from Chuck Harris. They tied points in the paint, 26-26. I mean, the big difference, 17 assists for UNC, 7 for SMU. They just moved the basketball. They found spots in the zone, and they shot the cover off the ball from beyond the arc, 50% from 3-point range. So really cool atmosphere. Really enjoyed it. Glad I went on a big day for SMU, but we'll have a lot more on this team. But they've got to circle the wagons and find their rhythm offensively, because if they play like they did in the second half, clearly 43-43. Now UNC got some guys in there late, but I mean, you gotta be ready to bring it in this league, and I think that's what this team is finding out really quickly these first 2 games. These are good learning experiences for this group, so we'll see how they respond. That'll be a big matchup, kind of in the grand scheme of, okay, where can this program go forward in this season, is if they can get a win against Georgia Tech on Saturday. So with that, guys, going to do a quick recruiting update here, but first I want to remind you guys to reach out to our friends at AKM Turf and Greens. Get $500 off your project today by mentioning ontheponyexpress.com or mentioning the code PONYUP when you email them info@akmturfandgreens.com. Get your backyard looking right. After this winter storm comes, don't be waiting around for the grass to grow back, or if your grass died or whatever, just get the turf put down. So reach out to our friends at AKM Turf and Greens today. All right, quick recruiting note here. We've had a bunch of them. We have a story recapping TJ Lindsey, a former 4-star defensive line prospect and Auburn transfer. He recapped his official visit to SMU. He's set to decide in the next week, so he gave the latest on the site as well. We'll have some big recruiting notes going up, as well as a kind of a trend-ish meter as far as where things stand for SMU in the transfer portal. But I do want to point out a big target in the transfer portal did tell 24/7 Sports, my old colleague Chris Hummer, that he is down to two programs and will announce his decision on Sunday, and that's Marcellus Barnes. And this is important to note because when you look at SMU losing Chasen Johnson, the wind blew one way and he ends up going back to UCF, losing out on one of the top young corners in the portal. But SMU didn't sit quietly. And this is who I alluded to at ontheponyexpress.com as far as who was visiting last weekend. And he's now to Kentucky and SMU. He was a 4-star in the 2024 recruiting class. He was an All-American Bowl participant, which we'll have more coverage of the All-American Bowl later this week. I'm hoping I'm able to get down to San Antonio because SMU's signees are balling out down there in San Antonio. But he originally committed to Georgia before following Fran Brown to Syracuse. Well, the former Chattanooga the Chattanooga native is on the move now after just one season up there in Syracuse. And he played in 5 games in 2024, had 11 tackles, 3 pass breakups. And he's a really talented cornerback that, I mean, SMU could really use when it comes to solidifying this portal group. And he's, listed almost 6 feet tall, listed at 170. I think that's definitely his high school weight, but he's got an opportunity to come in and play a big role for SMU right away. Ricky Hunley's been on him. He's known him for a while. So this is a huge opportunity for SMU to get him across the finish line. And we'll be tracking this one very closely. So stay tuned to ontheponyexpress.com. Again, subscribe for just $1 for your first week. It's worth it. We've had a bunch of people sign up. Huge community now at ontheponyexpress.com. So with that, guys, want to get you guys a quick podcast before I flew out. Hopefully mission accomplished. It'll be uploaded and out by the time I take off so you guys can enjoy it on your drive home. But everybody in Dallas and around the country, stay safe with these Arctic blasts. And if you're out on the West Coast in the LA area, we're thinking of you guys out there. That's just awful. Got a lot of friends and people that we know that are out there. And we're thinking of all of you guys dealing with the fires out there in LA too. So crazy weather, crazy disasters around the country. But we're here for you guys, hoping to kind of help you guys through it, whether it's freezing your tails off or dealing with some really serious stuff out there in California. So hope you guys enjoyed this edition of the podcast. We will catch you guys next time. Please hit the follow, subscribe, like button, whatever you guys do. We appreciate you guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you guys later this week with another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU-UNC and on Instagram at On3SMU. And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.